Well, I think that leads us to the next big question. And within the industry, the profession, there is a quest for developing safety skills within each of our students. And those water safety skills, uh, again, are in a wide range. Every age has different abilities to acquire the skills. But I'm concerned a little bit with the perception that the general public may take with the use of the word survival. I looked up Webster's and Wikipedia, and the definition was basically the struggle to live, basically. And granted, we are trying to teach children, all students, to be able to live in the water, to be able to preserve their life. But survival is one of those words that can have kind of a range of interpretation. And to me, it's sort of like survival training for like Outward Bound, where, we're learning to survive being stranded in the wilderness. And with that type of, quote, survival training, there's typically a preconceived expectation of what's going to take place, and it's generally with an adult. And the history of Outward Bound, of course, goes back to World War II and trying to teach young sailors to survive shipwrecks. But now it's become a family activity with even, I imagine school-age children. I don't know how young they can do it. But to subject the developing brain of an infant up to age 4 to, quote, survival type techniques, what are your thoughts on that, as opposed to learning skills that could have the ability to develop safety skills as opposed to survival?
Well, first of all, anyone, if they're adolescent and above, who's in a survival training, first of all, has a sense of self already. They're not 0 to 4. And so they already have a sense of resiliency perhaps, or they have a sense of who they are at least. So there's less of a risk of injury to oneself. You don't even have a sense of self from 0 to 4. That's the whole point of 0 to 4, is you're developing who you are as a little tiny human being. So you don't want to throw a child into a survival situation, which is tantamount, basically we could say it's equivalent to saying extraordinary, stressful situation. Why would you do that when all the literature would support that if you stress a child out, you will have both physiologic and psychological negative consequences? Why would you do that? For what purpose? Isn't the purpose that you're trying to enable a child to be able to float or survive in a water should they fall? I suppose I kind of have to say that, isn't that a parenting piece too? Like an infant, obviously this is your field, not mine, but do we really need to be using that kind of grave training? Is that going to be the best training? Why not just teach a child under comfortable circumstances how to maintain alive while in a pool? And then the second part is, of course, I think every parent should claim complete responsibility. If they've got an infant or toddler, they're not putting their kid in the water unsupervised or unmonitored. I think there's a whole parental piece too.
Well,
I don't know if I answered your
it
question.
Is. No, you did, and this is the big question in the area of debate is the risk of drowning is very high with this age group in the home setting typically. Open bodies of water, more of a concern for school age and above. But the drowning rate is high enough that it warrants action. And obviously, this is the brunt of our question, or the crux of our discussion. Some parents, especially those that have lost a loved one or close to someone who has, feel compelled to take these drastic measures to, quote, develop survival skills. Yet the question is, can these skills be attained in a more developmental manner? And I am a proponent of that you can bring in the parenting awareness, increase the education and develop other measures to help prevent a drowning incident. So, again, parents, teachers, the children all have to be engaged in this, and keeping that stress to a manageable level, I think, is going to be the key. And I don't know if there are any recommendations for our audience to further their education. I know we've talked about Hans Selye, who was sort of the father of biological stress. This was originally a term in engineering and physics that in the 30s was segued over into the biological and psychological world. Dr. Barry Brazelton, we've mentioned.
John Bowlby.
John Bowlby.
Talking about attachment parenting and the safety of the children and what they need. Yeah, absolutely. These are major researchers that would speak highly to the issue of doing things relationally based, slow mannered, so that the child can develop trust and learn these skills comfortably, with the instructor. I mean, I don't think, I think, of course, my heart would go out to any parent that's lost a child, regardless of how they've lost a child. But the idea that you make a sweeping definition that, okay, because X amount of children have lost their lives, that we should across the board teach now in a anxious survival mode. I don't know what the literature is in terms of if, which child learns quicker. But I think when you're thinking about teaching the majority of children, you want to teach from a position that's psychologically healthy, that's known to be psychologically healthy. That's all I can speak from. I'm a psychologist, and I'm here to say that I would never want to traumatize a child unnecessarily unless it's an actual life or death situation. I believe learning how to swim does not constitute life or death. I think it could, but that's where, again, parents have to watch. And I think I'm going to guess if the literature doesn't exist, that it will someday exist, that the children will learn so much better how to survive in an attachment relationally based manner of instruction.
That's fantastic. And I as far as learning better, I think the term retention comes into play here that
You can't retain if you're anxious.
No, and you tend to repress rather than retain. So,
absolutely.
And I think these are some of the key things that, in summary, we'd like to leave with our audience, that trust is paramount to any type of learning situation. Stress is always going to be in our lives, and we have the stress that we adapt to and learn from. For example, training for a swim team. You're stressing your body, but you're stressing with purpose, with expectations, and you gain from that. You're preparing yourself for the swimming competition. But learning to swim in a stressful situation may or may not lead to that adaptation, in which case we have all the things we've discussed down the line.
Yeah, you want to train you want to help the 0 to 4 be the children that are also swimming at 15, at 20, at 50, at 70. That's what you're looking at, is the long run, not the short run. Yes, in the short run, okay, they can reflexively, I guess, swim, but for what purpose?
Dr. Tonkins, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
I hope we've stimulated some interest and some discussion from this visit. Thank you so much.